13 Lectures on the Apocalypse by Brother Robert Roberts. Chapter 2, to Philadelphia. The Holy and True, holding the key of David, speaks comfortably to the ecclesia at Philadelphia. Why Jesus should be described as the Holy and the True we know well, but why should he be said to have the key of David? The truth has enabled us to apprehend this as well. The house of David is the pivot upon which the purpose of God in the earth turns. The covenant was made with him, out of which salvation grows. The 2nd of Samuel 23, verse 5. It concerns his house. The 2nd of Samuel 7, verse 25 to 26. Upon the throne of David is the Messiah to sit. Isaiah 9, verse 7. To possess the key of this house is to have power to decide its destinies. Using this key, we are told he shuts and no man opens, and opens and no man shuts. He has shut the house of David in the earth, and no man can enter into it. He will open it in due time, in restoring again the kingdom to Israel, and not the leagued forces of every nation under heaven will be able to shut it again any more. When Jesus reopens the house, he will open it for all of whom he approves in the day of his appearing. For his purpose is to invite them to the participation of his glorious throne. Revelation 3, verse 21, which is the throne of David. Luke chapter 1, verse 32. The allusion to the key of David is an allusion to this gracious purpose. It was his present door-opening graciousness, however, that he wished to make known to the brethren in Philadelphia of his power to exercise which his possession of the key of David was a guarantee. I have set before thee an open door, and no man can shut it. The reason of this was, thou hast kept my word, and hast not denied my name. On account of which also he promises a special exemption from the 10-year days of tribulation that were to come upon all the world, saying, Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world, to try them that dwell upon the earth. Chapter 3, verse 10. Here are two striking illustrations of Christ's providential control of the affairs of his brethren. The keeping open of a door against the power of man, and preservation in the midst of evil circumstances bearing hardly upon the people in general. These things were not written only for the generation that saw the first publication of the Apocalypse. They were written for the encouragement of brethren in whatever country or age Jesus should have any during his absence. Consequently, we shall rob ourselves of comfort if we refuse to appropriate the evident lesson, that if our ways please him, though we see him not, and the age of spirit gifts has not returned, he can and will keep open a door for us, when man would fain close it, and can shield in the midst of public evil, greatly affecting and distressing the people around us. Another promise made to Philadelphia is also probably of general applicability. I will make them, of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie, to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. Faithful men in Christ may be misunderstood and unappreciated, and calumniated by the carnal professors of their day and generation, whom, for the time being, they are commanded to judge not, and be patient and forbearing with. But the day is coming when he who saith, Vengeance is mine, will vindicate faithfulness and worth in a very effectual manner. The cringing obeisance of enemies and traducers will in that day attest the righteous judgment of God. The promise to Philadelphia is permanent pillarship in the temple of God. Him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out. And I will write upon him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, which is New Jerusalem, which cometh down out of heaven from my God. And I will write upon him my new name. The figure of an edifice is very serviceable to illustrate the relations of a community. It is a favourite figure in all styles of writing and language, and is peculiarly characteristic of the Scriptures. The saints are said to be stones, and the apostles foundations, on which they are built. 1 Peter 2 verse 5, Ephesians 2 verse 20. In the case before us we have a temple to express the corporate existence and functions of the saints in glory. To be a pillar in this temple is to be a principal part of the building, or to occupy an important position in the community. A pillar never removed from its place is illustrative of the stability appertaining to an immortal constitution of things. To have a name of the city is to be made a constituent of it, to be a part of it in the municipal sense. The city is Jerusalem, for this is the city which God chose from the beginning to place his name there. 1 Kings 14 verse 21, 2 Chronicles 12 verse 13. The city of the great king, Matthew 5 verse 35, which though now forsaken is to be remarried and re-established, Isaiah 62 verse 1 and 4. Because it is new Jerusalem, because Jerusalem under a new constitution of things, abundantly set forth in the prophets, Isaiah 52 verses 1 to 10, and 65 verses 17 to 19, and 66 verses 10 to 15. This new constitution of Jerusalem is from heaven, for it comes with Christ from heaven. Therefore the coming Jerusalem, though a manifestation of power and glory on the site of the old Jerusalem, is a new Jerusalem which cometh down out of heaven from my God. To be made a constituent of this new Jerusalem is the highest pinnacle of glory conceivable to our imagination. It is the glory promised by the Lord to the brethren in Philadelphia, and he appends to it the adjuration which extends the offer of it even to us. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith to the churches. Laodicea. Introducing himself as the faithful and true witness, the Lord in this message bears testimony against the Laodicean ecclesia, of which he says, Thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou wert cold or hot. So then, because thou art lukewarm, and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. Nothing could be more valuable to us than this message, as indicating the standard of the Lord's tastes, so to speak, with regard to the attitude of his disciples towards him. He wishes them to be one thing or the other. He cannot suffer moderation in the appreciation of spiritual things. Heartiness, thoroughness, enthusiasm may express what he means by the state of being hot. There can be no mistaking his meaning. He hates lukewarmness. He demands a warm affection towards himself as the incorporation of the things of God. He said this even when on earth. If any man love father or mother, son or daughter more than me, he is not worthy of me. It is unwise to discourage the exuberance of the spiritual affections. It is easier to become Laodicean than to rise to the Spirit's glow. What prudent people may regard as propriety may easily become lukewarmness, which the Lord detests. There is not much danger of the extreme of love for things of the Spirit. There is greater danger of coming short. Shortcoming in this respect is generally the result of what the Lord found fault with in the Laodiceans. He declares them self-satisfied. Thou sayest, I am rich and increased with goods, and have need of nothing. Thus they had a very good opinion of themselves. This self-complacency, bordering on self-conceit, is a very great enemy to spiritual enthusiasm. Spiritual enthusiasm is due to the admiration of that which is extraneous and divine. When people are well satisfied with themselves, their powers of admiration are personally absorbed, and cannot outflow to superior objects. And this self-satisfaction is generally a great obstruction to self-discernment. People think themselves well-conditioned when they are in fact petty, meagre, small, insignificant, and lean of soul. So it was with the Laodiceans, to whom Jesus said, Thou knowest not that thou art wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked. There is hope, however, for people even in this self-deceived condition, or Jesus would not have counselled the Laodiceans to buy of him gold tried in the fire, a robust faith, white raiment, righteousness, and eye salve, spiritual discernment. Men roused to a sense of their deficiency on these points will resort to those remedies in the reading of the Word and prayer, which will tend to supply the deficiencies pointed out. There is always room for hope with time and opportunity. Jesus speaks encouragingly in this sense even to the Laodiceans. He exhorts them to repent, and informs them of his solicitous friendliness toward them all. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come in to him, and will sup with him, and he with me. To those who respond to this invitation and obey his voice, he makes a glorious promise. To him that overcometh will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I also overcame, and am set down with my Father in his throne. The gospel of the kingdom enables us to understand this promise. Though men scorn the idea as the conception of fanaticism, it is a promise of association with Jesus in the kingly honours, glories, and joys of the new and glorious government which Christ is to establish in the land of promise for all the earth at his coming to restore again the kingdom to Israel. This promise also, though offered to the Laodiceans in the first place, is extended to every believer by the postscript appended to every message. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith to the churches. And with this, these highly interesting messages to the churches conclude. They are of immense value to the friends of Christ in all ages. They were of value, doubtless, to the individual communities to which, in the first instance, these messages were sent. But they have been of more consequence to the ages coming after, at least to that class in the ages described in the messages as having ears. For this service they were intended, and we cannot suppose they have failed of their purpose. There is an idea entertained by some that besides being a faithful description of the condition of the 7 Asian ecclesias contemporary with John, these messages also shadowed forth in prophetic outline the history of the churches of Christ in general, from its Ephesian, loving, labouring, zealous state, developed by the labours of the apostles in the 1st century, to the Laodicean state, reached at last as the result of the triumph of the apostasy foretold, a state in which it was cast out and rejected of Christ, spewed out of the Spirit's mouth as a nauseous and disowned thing. Whether the messages had this prophetic scope in the intention of the Spirit of God cannot be determined from any information be derived from the messages themselves. But certain it is that the history of the community established by the labours of the apostles has followed pretty much in the groove of these messages, and that for a long time, so far as the reputed churches of Christ in the world is concerned, the various state-endowed denominations of Christendom, the spewed-out and rejected state has obtained in the world. The professing Christian church rejects the faith and disobeys the commandments of Christ while professing submission to him. Lukewarmness is the universal order of the day. An earnest and practical interest in the things of God is regarded as something phenomenal and calling for pity. What can we do but take Peter's advice and save ourselves from this untoward generation? Fortunately for our good cheer, it is revealed that Christ at his coming will find some waking and ready. That we may be assisted in our endeavours to be of this number is one of the objects contemplated in this course of 13 lectures on the Apocalypse. God grant his blessing on the effort, and give us edification and peace.